Welcome to the Be Well at Usask podcast with me, Jocelyn Orb. In this special episode, I'm going to be talking to Jory McKay, the new USSU Vice President of Student Affairs and former Pride Center Coordinator. We're going to be discussing the significance of Pride, what it means to Jory, and to explore challenges that persist for LGBTQ Two-Spirit Plus staff, students, and faculty. Welcome to the podcast, Jory, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this today.
Can you start off by telling me a little bit about your role on campus and how long you've been with the University of Saskatchewan?
Yeah, within my role as the VP of Student Affairs, I work within on and off campus housing. I work really with sustainability quite a large amount. I work with equity and I work with the USSU centers. And with coronavirus, it's really been shifting a lot. But those are some of my main points I've been working with, and something I've been really passionate about within my role is sustainability and what that can look like with both the USSU and the University of Saskatchewan. Within my old role as the Pride Center Coordinator, I did a lot on campus around Pride. I'm sure you would have seen Queerapalooza or all the other things that I used to do. And I'm sure you'll see them again this year in a very different context. But yeah, I've been working with the USSU for 3 years now. This is my first year as an executive member, and I worked 2 previous years as the USSU Pride Center Coordinator. And this is actually my 4th year on campus. I got involved at the center quite early in my time on campus, and I'm so happy that I did.
Good for you. That sounds great. So remind me, what sort of studies are you in, Jory?
Yeah, I'm in my 4th year of anthropology with a history minor.
So you had just talked about your time at the Pride Center. I'm interested to find out what kinds of issues did you see students struggle with in your time there?
On campus, while the campus has been really progressing, there has been a lot of issues on campus, specifically around misgendering has been a very, very large issue from professors or from other students. There overall is a lack of education on our campus and within our high schools in Saskatchewan and globally about what gender identities and gender expressions are and how to properly use pronouns. That's something that we had a lot of students come in with their struggles for, and that's something that we tried to fix or tried to appease through our positive space workshops and through our trans ally workshop. And they've definitely been helping quite a bit, but it is still something that we're having to constantly try to help students with. So it's something that we really need to work on further, as well as gender neutral washrooms and access to them. While there is a gender neutral washroom, and I believe, I don't want to be quoted on this, but I believe every single building on campus, at some points, they're very inaccessible and very difficult to find. Even with the map, we're finding that students can't necessarily find them. So it's something that we really need to have more access to on our campus. And those are some major things that we really did find a lot of issues in. Obviously, I could spout off a super long list, but those are the 2 that we really, really found a lot of issues with, as well as within the Pride Center itself and sort of its framework and how it works. There was always a need for social connection for LGBTQ2S plus students, for students that are moving from smaller communities, whether they are queer or whether they're not queer students. Moving in here, it is sort of a culture shock, so it's something that we were working a lot with. We did partner with Usask, and something that I think needs to continue is that further education for new students to this campus, with that when coming to Saskatoon, the culture here might be so much different than where you might have come from before.
Oh, no, absolutely. I can see how that would be. You mentioned the positive space workshop. So that's something I've been here on campus and the manager of the Student Wellness Center since 2016. And I see the signs in our unit. So clearly someone went through the training or someone came in and provided that to our staff. But how would people access it now? Like, is it still available? Can it be done virtually? Or where would we go if we wanted to participate in that workshop?
Yeah, the positive space workshops can actually be done virtually very easily. It's something that we're currently working on with Simone Horowitz. They should be available whenever someone signs up for one. Since coronavirus started, our intake for those has been quite a bit lower because it just hasn't been the front of people's mind. Yeah. But I think now that we're getting, I don't want to say back to normal because I don't think we're getting back to normal, and that normal might not be here for a while. But now that we're getting into the run of things, I think it's something that can definitely come back. And I would love to continue to do them virtually. They can be done very easily. There's usually 1 or 2 presenters that come in, and then there's maybe a couple sheets that some people might have to print out. but it's something that can very easily be done virtually. The group work might be a little bit harder, but it can be done virtually if you email the USSU Pride Center at pridecenter@usssu.ca, or Simone Horowitz. I don't remember Simone's email off the top of my head. It is.
That's okay. You know what? She's going to be someone else we interview for this podcast, so we'll get her to share her contact information.
Awesome.
That's then. Yeah. So that's great that you mentioned her, because we'll be interviewing her as well. So we're definitely interested at the Student Wellness Center and going through that workshop again. So maybe we'll be your first big group to sign up.
Yeah, that would be awesome. These workshops are great for everyone. There's always a lot of information you can learn, even if you're someone that's been a part of queer education and queer dialects and discussions for years. There's always so much that you can learn through just a workshop that has some things that might make you challenge your current beliefs, or they might help you discuss with someone else and learn how to properly discuss these things, like how to be a trans ally if you aren't a trans person, and how to properly step in. So they're always really awesome.
Okay, sounds good. We're going to sign up. So my next question is, would you say the campus culture has changed for LGBTQ2 Spirit Plus students over the last few years and for the time that you've been on campus? And then sort of my next question from that was, what have you personally witnessed? So you've told us a little bit about what you've seen as your time as the Pride Center coordinator, but would you say the culture has changed? And I guess if so, how?
Yeah, I think as all cultures, our culture has really been shifting. And over the past 4 years that I've been on campus, or I guess it's been 3.5 at this point, it's been shifting very dramatically. Attitudes towards us LGBTQ plus people have been shifting. People from smaller communities, so it's something that people are beginning to get educated about through extremely popular queer people on television, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. It's becoming something that instead of having to search out and find a queer person in person to figure out all of these things or to sort of discover them, they've become such a part of our everyday discussion that while there are still things people do need to learn, I think that there will always be things that people need to learn because queer culture itself is always changing. I think that people are able to find those resources way easier. The idea of queer people having to constantly educate everyone around them to the point where they might get really tired of having to educate everybody isn't happening as often because identities like trans identities are now so well known. Identities with sexuality are so well known. People know that they're separate things now instead of the same identity. And I think that culture has really just been shifting with a lot more acceptance. And I'm really happy to see it. Within my time on campus, I've seen it through my own friend group and individuals that I met in my first year of university. From getting messages and me being so open in Pride, I've gotten messages from people that I met in my first year of university in one class that I remember, but I didn't know them that well, and them say that they're super happy about everything that's happened. And just from seeing my Instagram stories or Snapchat stories or from following the Pride Center on Facebook, they've been able to discover so much information without having to take hours and hours of research just because it's always there. And I think that's really awesome that we're able to educate young people so early on queer issues just through the media that we see, which was something that 4 years ago we couldn't have even fathomed.
Yeah, I would agree. And to thank you for how open that you've been. I think I was a student here back in I guess I finished in 1998, so that was many years ago on this campus. And while there's always been a Pride Center, there certainly hasn't been the level of openness or acceptance. And I think a lot of that has to do with how accessible and how open students like you have been in talking about the issues and in being so forward thinking and so really kind and compassionate to people, and creating these spaces where students can come and ask questions and be curious and learn without that idea of 20 years ago, there was a lot of secrecy and a lot of people staying, as we called it, in the closet because they just didn't feel comfortable on campus in that way. And so there's been students over the years that have had really strong leadership positions on this and have been really instrumental in opening that space up. And Jory, you've been one of those people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think that it's really for these kind of issues that we're teaching about. It's really hard for someone to go in there and ask those questions at all. So for me, just like we say in the workshops, it's a safe space to ask a question. Even if you think that question might be inappropriate, it's safe to ask me if I've said that it's safe to ask me. And I think that's one of the biggest things is when you tell people, if you have a question that when you're out in public might be really offensive to ask, I'd much rather you ask me if I've given you permission than go out in public and accidentally say something really offensive that you might not honestly even mean just because you weren't informed on it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do as queer people who feel safe to do that, who are open to do that, to continue to have those discussions, those really difficult discussions sometimes, just because that person might not be transphobic or homophobic. They just never learned.
For sure. And it's good to be curious and ask questions, right?
Absolutely.
So that sort of leads us a bit into this, recognizing that one of the purposes of this podcast is to acknowledge that it's Pride Month. We kind of used to go from, a day or a parade, and now we're calling it the entire month, which is exciting. But I want to know, what does Pride mean to you? And what is the importance of the University of Saskatchewan and, society in general continuing to observe it?
I don't know if I can put this into a couple of sentences.
That's okay.
Pride means everything to me. I've been involved in Pride since my grade 12 year in high school, which is crazy to me to think about. I was involved in our local Pride organization in Swift Current and really helped facilitate a whole bunch of events and run a whole bunch of things. And it gave me so many of the talents that I have now and abilities with event planning, which is something I'm super proud of, is event planning. And it's really helped me with that. And I've been able to produce so many things to help so many people. In my hometown, in grade 12, we were able to have a queer prom for the first time. And there was way over 100 people there. And I saw people come out to that queer prom who got to come out for the first time. And it meant so much to me to see these people who had been in their closet their whole lives be able to go to an event where they felt safe. And even if they were in the closet after they left that event, have that one time where publicly to some other queer individuals and allies that they're queer and it was safe to be queer. I still have that book from that when people were signing in things to remember it. And I go back through it every once in a while and I cry because it's so, it means so much to me to read those things. And I don't think that passion for Pride's ever changed for me, in seeing that it gives people the ability to be who they are, whether they're a queer person or a trans person or anyone of any identity. I think that Pride gives you the opportunity to be who you are publicly in a safe space. In Saskatoon, Pride is quite a bit different than what it was for my hometown, but I think the ability, even if there's a really large event and you feel scared to go, the ability to see that parade happen every single year, or see the main stage when you're just walking by the pier, or see the flags up all around the city, it really just shows you that these places really care. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is being able to see when you walk around your community that these places that you shop at, these places that you do your business at, these places that you do all these things, that they care about you, and being able to see those things really, really means a lot. And I think Pride's ever shifting and growing. And this year, when we've been able to put things digitally, it's been quite a bit harder to see them. But I still think that they've been there. Even when I've been driving around, I've seen Pride flags hanging up on businesses. And I've seen on my street, there's quite a few Pride flags, and that was really exciting to see. And especially when the University of Saskatchewan posted the video of them raising the flag on campus, even though it's just a symbolic thing, it means so much. The university was the only place in the city that had an official flag raising, to the best of my knowledge, and it meant a lot to be able to see somewhere, even in the middle of what's happening right now, still be able to take some time and say this is an important thing to do. And I think lots of students saw that. I think lots of people on campus saw that, and I think it meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, I would agree, Jory. And I just was talking to someone the other day about how much the Saskatoon, I guess, the Pride celebration has grown in the last 10 years, it's pretty significant to see the different groups and organizations, the businesses that have come out and support, and what that does to the feeling of community and for people feeling, acknowledged and noticed and valued. I think it's, that's a really sort of a feather in the cap, I think, of the Pride Committee, the people that get together and put that celebration on it every year, and then the people in the city who really do support it. So, yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. By the time this podcast airs, the Saturday event, so I believe it's coming up this Saturday, will be over. But do you want to tell us a little bit? So my basic understanding is there's going to be a virtual Pride Parade. Is that correct?
Yeah. So on this Saturday, there will be a virtual Pride Parade at noon. It'll be live streamed on our Facebook page, on the Saskatoon Pride Facebook page, as well as there'll be a virtual main stage happening that night with quite a few performers, with Angina from season 1 and All Stars 5 of Drag Race, who will be headlining it. It'll all be done virtually through Twitch and YouTube, and we'll still be able to show off all the members of our community that always come out every single year to the parade and what Pride actually means to them, and why it's important to still have this kind of thing during the middle of a pandemic. And I'm super excited to see how it goes. I think that our team has been putting, I know the co-chairs of Saskatoon Pride have been putting, I would dare say, thousands of hours into this individually. So I think it's going to be a really awesome event, and I can't wait to see it. Yeah,
we'll have to check it out. Last year was a wonderful parade again. I do believe we got rained on. So there's another advantage of having it virtual, is that we will likely not be rained on.
Yeah, last year it did rain. I remember because I was running around setting up the market for everybody.
Yeah.
And I fell down the side of a hill and was covered in mud and had to go home and change. So my Pride outfit got ruined and I had to wear a giant rain suit thing, which is in all the photos for everything as my last year as the Pride Center coordinator. But the Saskatoon Pride Parade has grown to be the largest parade in the city, which I think is just incredible to see. This parade that takes almost like a half hour for you to see all the entries go across is amazing to just see that many people walk in this parade every year.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jory, this brings our time almost to a close. Is there a final thought you want to leave listeners with?
Yeah, I really want to leave listeners with that idea of not being afraid to ask. Whether it's specifically with queer issues and wanting to come to me or the next Pride Center coordinator about what's happening in the community, asking questions about how you can be involved, how to meet new queer people, or if you're not from the community, how to properly address people or how to ask those questions. Make sure you can come to me and many other individuals on campus who work in this kind of field like I do and ask how to properly do that. And I want to leave people with that openness to ask questions. And also, in my new position as a VP of Student Affairs, don't be afraid to ask me questions as well. I think it's really important to continue to ask people that are that are doing these things, A, how you can help, B, what you want from them. Because me, as a VP of Student Affairs, I work for students. When I was the Pride Center coordinator, I worked for students. So if a student ever came to me with an idea, it's my job to attempt to make it happen. And I really want to leave students with that. Just don't be afraid to ask.
That's wonderful. What's the best way for students to get a hold of you?
The best way for students to get a hold of me is if you email me at vpstudentaffairs@usssu.ca, or if you go on our website, that email will be there as well, because I know it's quite a lengthy email compared to the Pride Center one. If you go on our website at usssu.ca, you'll be able to find my email there.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And thanks for taking the time to talk with us today, Jory. So thanks for listening to the Be Well at Usask podcast with me, Jocelyn Orb, and thanks again to Jory for joining me and sharing. Please check in again for further episodes and more content related to being well. Please subscribe and share this podcast. You can find us on multiple platforms, including Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We'd also love to hear from you. Please post comments and questions, and we'll look to include them in future episodes. Also, if there's someone you'd like to see as a guest or a topic you'd like us to cover, or even a reaction to an episode you want to share, please write to us at bewell.podcast@usask.ca. Until next time, stay safe and be well.